Alright, so this is our tribal collaboration group presentation. The first prompt that asked us was our experiences in collecting sources for our encounter and discovering about our tribes. For mine, it wasn't that hard. I did what we did in class. I went to Wikipedia and just looked at all the sources and looked over every source and chose the best ones. They all kind of said the same things. And then I also used the Midland database, which is pretty helpful. Those are two pretty good resources. I found what I needed to find pretty easily.
I also used the Midland database, and I found sources using like journal articles from the database, and then I also found a lot of articles online from universities in the area that talked a lot about these tribes.
So I went to Google and I found some pretty good sources, .orgs, .govs. It's pretty easy.
I also went to Google and used .org and .govs, and they're all about the same, didn't face many challenges.
So did most of the states that your tribes were like originating in, did they have a lot of like state government pages about them?
Mm-hmm.
That's what helped mine the most. So I had a lot of
Yes.
Oklahoma heritage stuff.
Yeah.
I don't really know where your guys' tribes are from, but
Yeah, they were either like state or like museums in the area
Yeah.
or like the
Yeah.
universities.
Like societies, like
yeah.
Kansas Historical Society.
So was there a difference between your guys' tribes where they like actually inhabited and then where they ended up having their reservations at, or no? Because mine were like all over the Great Plains. I had the Comanche. They were all over the Great Plains, but at the end of what they're really known for in the late like 1800s is being like Oklahoma, and then they had a lot of fights with the United States, kind of going back on their reservation promises. But again, that kind of like ties back into how I found all of my orgs, like the Oklahoma State stuff, because they were really prevalent to, I guess, the settling of Oklahoma.
Mine was the Wichita, and they mostly are known for being in Kansas, which they mostly occupied in Kansas, but they were also in northern Texas and southern Oklahoma and that kind of area.
Yeah, so I did the Kiowa, and they actually started out in southwest Montana, but ended up migrating down to around the Arkansas River and inhabited areas along the Arkansas.
Oh, so that kind of brings in a good point for mine. Is mine migrated from Wyoming? They're offshoot of the Shoshone branch up there, and so they have the same like linguistic family tree as them. But as they kind of moved, that's why like
Yeah, the Kiowa and the
Comanche
they run into each other when they're both moving down to the
down to where to
Arkansas.
go
Yep.
okay, that
And then-
area,
and then
the
they
southern Great Plains, they did rival each other a little bit. So I mean, ours were pretty nomadic. I know that I feel like the Wichita were not. I don't know.
The
I
Kiowa
think,
were.
I
Yeah,
think both
okay.
of y'all's tribes were, or both of the two tribes that you guys did, were nomadic and did a lot of like hunting and stuff.
Okay.
I know like what I found from the Wichita was that they had permanent homes that they were made out of grass. They also farmed a lot, and they traded a lot of their crops. So I don't know if you guys had trade.
Oh yeah. So that brings in a good thing. So I mean, we were kind of talking about geographically how they're different, and then also how we traded bison and you guys traded more crops. That's
Yeah.
definitely. And then so like you guys focused around trading crops. The Comanche were great at trading horses. Like that was what made them the lingua franca there,
Okay.
because that's how you travel across the Great Plains.
Yeah, the Kiowa were also very like equestrian, and the bison and the horses, and they mostly traded like bison and not much like vegetables and like farming type stuff.
Do we have any more commonalities and differences we discovered there?
I think we also discussed how they were all very like spiritual and connected to the land. So I know I learned that they had a lot of like gods and goddesses, and they've talked about how their gods were ruler of the heavens and the women were rulers of the earth for them. So I don't know if that's something that you guys found.
Yeah, didn't find much about that. Most of the stuff that, the .org, especially the Oklahoma ones talked about, was one of them was the Oklahoma Historical Society, and so that was a pretty important org for it. And that was talking more about the culture of the Comanche and how it was kind of bare bones and very militaristic. And so, I mean, while there's like, you could go more into depth like the gods and goddesses, there wasn't really that for the Comanche.
The Kiowa was like very centered around like animistic beings, so like thunder, lightning, like wind, all that stuff. And birds and animals. That's what they really focused on for their culture.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that's kind of some different spiritual differences. What you got?
Oh yeah, no, she covered it with the Kiowa. Did a good job.
Oh right. I forgot you guys said the same one.
I don't know if you guys found anything about kind of like the personality or the hospitality of your tribes, but I found from the Kansas Historical Society that they said that the Wichita were actually really known for being really friendly to strangers and known for their hospitality. So
I didn't see much of mine on ours.
So the Kiowa, they were, and I actually saw with the Comanche, two of the first tribes to get horses from the Spanish. So they were very buddy-buddy with the Spanish, but they were not with the French because they ended up taking over a French fort later on down the line.
Oh, interesting. Gotcha.
You know?
Yeah, I think the Comanche didn't really love outsiders. A lot of the slaves or people who had been like captured into their ranks ended up adopting the lifestyle. So like I think they murdered everybody aside from like 10 and below, or 10. They murdered everybody from 10 and above, and then like 10 and below, and those people grew up within their culture, and those people ended up being delegates normally, helping them create treaties with the U.S. So I mean that was kind of cool. But aside from that, they didn't really have a linked culture or get together at all. It was really just kind of patriarchal. It was just all the men on one side of the family. They were all related, and the women married out, and you were all tribes, and there was no communicating in between any of them.
I'm glad you said that because the Wichita are actually very what's the word?
Matriarchal.
Yeah, and so they married into like the women's family, and they followed the women's family line, and the men would actually move to the homes of their wives.
That's interesting.
So.
Yeah, that's completely different from that. What about you guys? Anything to input there?
Not like
No.
societal standards, anything like that.
Not much.
So I mean, from the perspective of an explorer or settler, what are you guys doing if you encounter your tribes? I know personally for me, I'm running the other way. That's about all that really needs to be said. They're not very friendly towards settlers, and they probably hawk you down with their horses. So I mean,
I would probably bring something to trade, some goods to give, just to kind of set the tone, like, we're cool.
being diplomatic.
Yeah.
That's a good way to go about it.
The Kiowa did not grow their own crops or anything, so I'd probably start a farm
Ooh,
and
okay.
bring some.
Trade with them that way.
Teach them some skills.
You know,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good one.
Yeah, I would agree with you guys. I mean, the Wichita did have farms, but definitely just being respectful and like learning about their culture before I go there and learning about their customs. Keeping an open mind is pretty important when like interacting with outside groups.
Yeah, so I mean, we kind of encountered like what the strategies for success would be with interacting with your tribes. I mean, mine would, I don't really know, not be aggressive and stay away from their land, like the Comanches. They don't violate their reservations.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just respect them.
Yeah, be respectful. That'd be a great strategy.
Just a good
Or have
start.
technological superiority, one of
Okay.
the two. But yeah, I mean they're a tribe that you should probably avoid most of the time, especially their lands, unless you're trading with them.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything else to add?
No, I think we got it.
All right. Well, yeah,
Perfect.
there we go. We learned all about our tribes today. Hell
Yes,
yeah.
we did.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming to our TED Talk.